And I'ma do something I ain't never did. Go somewhere I ain't never been. Say something I would never say. And I'ma make a song I would never make. I'ma get what I asked for. I'ma go to a place, get a passport. Cause I ain't never been anywhere except here. And I ain't known anything here except fear. Ain't nothing left here except death here. And if I want to live, I can't rest here. I can't wait until the check clear. I wonder what it's like to live in Paris next year. I wonder what it costs, book a flight today. I'd sleep there. Wake up in Tokyo, a show with Lupe. I know what you say I'm too late. It's never too late to say I'm too great. One of my earliest memories happened around the time that I was about 3 years old. I remember my father came to pick me up from daycare. Upon entering the car, I started to cry, saddened as children often are when they have to depart from their friends. My father asked, "Why are you crying?" I told him I didn't want to go home. He replied, "When we get home, I'll give you something to cry about." And he did. Matter of fact, my father gave me something to cry about so often that him and my mother would soon divorce, leaving her as a single parent with 2 kids on the east side of Columbus, Barnett Road. Growing up, I was embarrassed by my home. It was small, vines wrapped around the buildings. We shared a backyard with 3 other units, and we had roaches. I used to spend my time in the living room with wooden blocks and Legos, building buildings, imagining structures that weren't available to me in my neighborhood. Then it was time to move. This time into what seemed like a better place. It was a double, had a basement. It was still east side, but a little nicer. Still had some roaches, but maybe not as many. And I felt like this is really going to be the place for us. My father, fresh out of prison, included in the us. When he came out of prison, he started off a great guy, involved, loving God, changed. But it wasn't soon before the violence would pick up again. I remember in those times going to school, welts and bruises all over my body. I remember being taken to a basement, being forced to do workouts that he learned in prison and lift weights. And if I couldn't get the weight off my chest, then he would hit me with the weight belt. While most kids around that time were probably thinking about something more innocent and childlike, my every thought in those days were, I wonder if my father's going to kill one of us. Several traumatic events later led to my sister being taken to live with my grandmother, my mother having a nervous breakdown, and me somewhere in between trying to make sense of everything. I was still in elementary. And then it was time to move again. When I think back to these events, there's a part of me that's saddened by what happened to me and what happens to so many children all the time. Yet, there's a part of me that is greatly empowered by that circumstance. And there's a valuable lesson in there. You see, even when all this was going on, I spent a lot of my time creating. I spent a lot of my time in my own world. What I've learned is that children have this remarkable ability. Besides being able to make things disappear in the thin air when I'm looking for them, or breaking things that just seem unbreakable, they also have this amazing ability. And I know for a fact, because I'm a father of 5, they have the ability to not listen to a word you say. And they have ears. Amazing. It's the craziest thing. And no matter how often I try to get them to adjust, it never works. But in there is a powerful lesson. You see, sometimes I would get so caught up in Duck Hunt or Creepy Crawlers or a Batman comic book or Dancing with My Mom to Michael Jackson that it wouldn't seem like the corner store just got robbed. It wouldn't seem like maybe we were low on food that day. It wouldn't seem like my dad was crazy. What I found out is that children have the ability to live in their own imagination, and they visit this place we call reality sometimes. And that can be a powerful, powerful situation, as annoying for adults as it is. What I basically learned is this: at a fundamental level, what allowed me to survive my situation is knowing that I could imagine and create my own world and live there. I began to realize that home is not necessarily a place that you live, but it's a place that you create when you create. After the move, I found myself caught between two worlds. One was the world outside, and the other was the world going on inside of my head that was becoming more and more loud each day. I knew I had to redefine my sense of home, because to attach myself to the events that happened, well, that would be quite depressing. Also, in my new middle school, on the first day when there's students running around talking about who was stomped and kicked in the face. You see, violence was an everyday part of my life. And it wasn't soon before I found myself engaged in it. Fights here and fights there, in school suspension, out of school suspension, and my general apathy. But growing up right alongside of that was the popularity of rap. Now, drawing was my first art form. But music, well, that's something I was born into. My uncle played guitar, and my grandma kept us in that church. I loved music. It was all around me. If you asked me any words on the radio around that time, I could have told you. Whether it was Outkast, me and you, yo mama and yo cousin too. Or maybe it was a Wu-Tang song. I bomb atomically. Socrates' philosophies and hypotheses can't define how I be dropping these mockeries. I knew it all. I would go home, break out a cassette tape, put the paper in top, record my favorite mix, and just write down all of the words to the song. Well, one day a friend of mine said, you know all of the words to the song, so why don't you just try to come up with rap? And I said, no, man, I don't do that. But since he was the best rapper in the school, I decided to try my hand at it. I wrote my rhyme during a paper route that morning, and I came back to school and I spit it for him, or performed it for him. When he heard it, he said, well, it's not whack. But to me, it was like he was saying I was the best rapper ever. So I came up with my second rhyme, and that one, it had everybody in the school jumping. I still remember it. I used the mic like Gamma, transforming on it like my name was Bruce Banner. You want to go one-on-one with the microphone Bama, grand slammer, hit you hard like a sledgehammer. Ooh! And then everybody knew I was the greatest of all time. I remember that feeling, though, from writing that rap, and I remember everyone's response. And in that moment, I noticed that everything that I had been through for that moment of time, it all faded away. All of a sudden, my history and my biography wasn't as important. All of a sudden, I was in a special place. And it even changed the way the teachers responded to me. And so I was eager to go home and fill up my notebook and take that journey. What I found out is that I could use language, I could use words, alliteration, poetry, literature, and I could construct words the same way I used to construct those blocks in the living room, and I could create my own world and invite everyone to come and visit me. And so hip-hop became this constant in my life all the way to the present day. In 2012, I dropped the EP called Passport, which chronicled a journey of fulfilling your dreams and pushing your limitations. Inspired by my reading of the book, The Alchemist, I felt like the main character on that journey, but also discovering what I was looking for was with me the whole time. How I still continue to create this day is by being as creative as possible and helping as many people become creative as well. About 6 years ago, a couple of friends of mine had an idea to create a conference that celebrated diversity in creative fields. They reached out to me to help with the conference, and out of that came Creative Control Fest. We was able to secure a partnership with the historic Lincoln Theater, and we're going on our 6-year run-in to create home for artists of color. Shortly after that, in the same neighborhood, the one I currently reside in, my wife and I purchased a home, and I did a pilot program in a local middle school across the street for my program, Urban Scribe, which is basically about teaching students how to use arts and technology in order to document their history and become leaders in the community. And most recently, I tried my hand at photography through a photo exhibit called Talking to the Buildings, inspired by a song I wrote called The City. It was picked up from a local newspaper. It explores gentrification. It explores different things and personal stories and my relationship with the architecture in my community. So I stay creative and I stay creating. In the fundamental level, I believe that creativity allows a person to transcend their current situation by tapping the power within. I was able to find home through music and through writing and through poetry. But I recognize that everyone here today has to find their own sense of home, and it may not be the same way. I just want to leave you with some brief points. First, in order to find home, you have to stick close to the feeling. Home is a feeling that you get when you're creating something. It's a healthy anxiety that allows you to express who you are. It's something that you love. It's something that you have to do. You don't have to do it as a career. It could be a hobby. It could be a lifestyle. I'm not a professional rapper, but I love hip-hop, and that's a home for me. Second thing is, when you're creating, invite others to share. One of my mentors from California told me, the way to establish yourself in a new community is to open up your doors and invite others in. I used to be a perfectionist, a person who would create a lot of things and keep them to myself, but now I understand that you have to share and allow people to experience it as well. Home is a place where many things are exchanged and many things are shared. And lastly, home, it doesn't have to be one place. I have many homes. I've done things in real estate. I've done things in workforce development, violence prevention, gang intervention. And most recently, I work as a developer in technology. And a lot of people say I'm scattery and I'm jumpy, but it let me a TEDx talk. So, oh well. The point of the matter is, you don't have to stick to one thing. I consider myself a serial creative. There's things that interest me, and they become like second, third, and fourth places to visit. So be inspired and encouraged. But most importantly is remember that home is not a place you live. It's a place that you create when you create. Thank you.